Hello everyone, it's Nkechi here, and welcome to episode 2 of the Perfectly Ready and Worthy Single Females podcast. Now, the PRW is a community of single females who are aligned in purpose, in reach out, and in power. So they're aligned in purpose because they're not just single females that are ready available, for any man. They're single females that are ready available for the right men. Okay, and so the community gives you the opportunity to to sit with like-minded females, single females, to learn not just about relationships but the seven phases of the 360-degree female. So we're talking about relationships, we're talking about career, we're talking about business and financing, we're talking about 7 areas. Now you can go onto the website and sort of read about the 7 areas the community covers. We have things from masterclasses to challenges, and the masterclasses are beautiful because they come from experts that are gurus in quotes within their fields of expertise. And so that's what we do. So you are in a community, a monthly subscription where you get everything you need for way much less. So in this week's podcast, I hope you had the time to sort of reflect on the podcast, last week's podcast. This week I've got it's a question that has come in different formats to me. It's a question that has to do with his religiosity versus his attitude. Okay? And this is a critical question because a lot of females, single females, have come to me saying, he is very religious, he prays a lot, he's a Christian, but the way he treats me doesn't correlate with the way he prays and how he talks about God. And so today, I'm going to talk about, and I'm not going to go into detail, deep details, no, but I'm going to give you pieces of information you need to know about the male and his religiosity and his attitude. Okay? So, in essence, when we talk about a man's religiosity, a lot of people talk about religiosity as being, his religion, who he is. He prays the Lord. He goes to church. He's committed a church. He loves God. But the way he treats me is quite opposite to what I would recommend even a sister to be treated. So I'm going to say this. When it comes to the male, there are 2 things we're talking about here. Being religious, okay, is different from his attitude. They do not merge. The only time they merge, okay, now I'm going to speak from a Christian perspective because I am a Christian. I'm a Papa's girl, okay? I believe in God, I believe in Jesus Christ. So I'm going to talk from a Christian biblical perspective, all right? When the Bible talks about the man spirit being aligned with God's spirit, that's when the man becomes born again. The Bible never says that when a man's spirit aligns with God's spirit, his soul becomes born again. No, the Bible says his spirit bears witness with God's spirit that he is a child of God. Now, every human being, females, males alike, we're made up of 3 parts: the spirit, the soul, and the body. Okay? 3 distinctive different parts. When a man becomes born again, we're dealing with his spirit. We are not dealing with his soul, and we are not dealing with his body. That's why when you go back to the Bible, it says that be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Your mind sits in your soul. It doesn't sit in your spirit. Okay? So when you talk about a man's attitude, okay, it doesn't sit with the spirit of a man. It sits in his soul, how he thinks, the way he thinks, the information he gets, how he deciphers information, how he pieces this information, how he behaves, his attitude, the way he speaks, what he thinks. They do not come from the spirit. They come from the soul, and it's all based on the information people have heard over time, whether it's peer information, whether it's information whilst growing up. It's all based on the information a person hears. Now, it will be very immature to think that because somebody is born again, therefore their soul is born again. Okay, let me use that word. It'll be immature to think that they both merge or they both correlate. No, a man still has to work on his soul by the renewing of his mind. Okay, and so when you see somebody who is quite religious or quite prayerful, loves God, but then his attitude and the way he speaks, the way he behaves, the kinds of things that come out from his mouth do not correlate with the life, the spiritual life he also portrays, then there is a mismatch. There is a mismatch between his superior, in quote, godly life to the state of his soul. Hence the reason why the Bible says, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Remember, you're already born again, but you still need to, your soul, your mind still needs to be transformed. Okay, so it's very important you know that these two things are different. So when you look at a man that is asking you, will you go out with me or will you marry me? Please do not base your feedback or your answer solely on the fact that he is born again, that he loves God. No, you need to go in deeper. You need to understand the way he thinks. You need to understand why he thinks in a specific way. You need to understand what are his likes and dislikes. Why does he dislike this? Why does he like this? You need to understand the kind of information he's been exposed to over time and what that has created in his mind and in his soul. A man's soul is made up of his mind, his emotions, okay? And it's also made up of what you call determination. Well, people use the word determination, but it's way, way, way above determination. Okay, so a man's mind, you have the conscious mind and the subconscious. Now, the subconscious is the one that people are not really aware of, but that is the most dangerous place where the negative informations are stored. And though you might not remember what those negative information look like, but you remember the instances, you remember how the negative information came to be part of you. Okay, so your subconscious is the part of your soul where there is so much deposit from the things you see, the things you hear, the things you speak about, the things you've heard over time, whether it's curses or it's blessings. Okay, that is where it is stored. That information is stored in that hard drive. Your conscious mind is the part where you forget things. Okay, your conscious mind doesn't store any particular part kind of information. Your subconscious is what remembers what happened 20 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Okay, that's, you're dealing with your subconscious mind. Now when a man is born again, when a male is born again, he has dealt with his spirit man. He hasn't necessarily dealt with his subconscious, because he has a deposit of information that has been stored since he was a child. Now, that could be positive information. It could be a positive storeroom. It could be a storeroom that has so much blessings, joy, happiness. It could also be a storeroom where there's been so much trauma, so much pain, so much hardship, and he has stored the memory. He has stored everything in his subconscious. And hence, that is why the subconscious has the ability to trigger people's emotions and the way they think, the way they behave. Because as a man thinks, he becomes, he is. Okay? So remember, it has nothing to do with his spirit at this time. He is required to go back into his subconscious and remove all the baggages that do not align with the state of his spirit. At which point, the point where his behavior towards you, the way he speaks to you, the way he commands you, you're not yet married, but yet he wants to rule your life. He is dealing with something greater on the inside. He's probably dealing with a trauma he has never resolved. And traumatized people will traumatize you. It doesn't matter if they are born again or not. When someone is traumatized, he will traumatize you. Why do you think when you have a rotten egg that is placed in a bowl with good matured eggs, that over time the rotten egg, the rot from the egg seeps into the good eggs and then corrupts the good eggs in such a way that they begin to become rotten. Why? Because it's rotten. And even though it's one egg, it has the ability to traumatize the other eggs. So when a man is traumatized, if you don't ask the right questions while you're still dating, while you're still going out, while you're still courting, if you do not ask the right questions, you will fall into a lot of problems when you eventually get married because he hasn't worked on his soul. So, in saying all I've said, the simple way to actually understand the true nature of a man, even though he is born again, but what does he have in his soul? What does he have in his mind? Why does he react and behave and talk the way he talks? You need to start asking the right questions. These are the simple tips. Ask the right questions and spend at least 70% of your courting time observing the man. When you are in courtship, when you're in a relationship, it's not time to throw caution in the wind. No, it is time to be very observant. It is time to be very observant. Does he treat you with respect? If he respects God, if he has worked on his soul and his mind, he will eventually, because the spirit man will superimpose the mind after a while, after he has worked on his mind and he subjects his mind to the Spirit of God. The spirit man will take control. Okay? And so if he respects God, he will respect you. Does he speak to you kindly? Is he empathic? When you're ill, or when you feel sick, or when you feel down, or if you've lost a loved one, how does he react? Does he talk you down? If you use his things for some reason, you use something of his, does he flare up? If you speak to him about a particular theme 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, does he become very angry? Your time with him in a relationship or in a courtship is a time to be very observant. You become a police officer, an investigative, let me use the word investigative journalist, okay, when you're courting a man. So the question that was asked in different forms, why his spiritual life doesn't align with his attitude, I've simply stated why. You're dealing with 2 different aspects of a man. You're dealing with his spirit and you're dealing with his soul. And part of his soul is his mind, okay? His mindset. Because as a man thinketh, so he is. Okay, I hope this has helped in one way or the other. If you have any questions, feel free to leave your questions below this video, okay? So see you later, ladies, and hope to see you in the Members Club. Bye.